All right, guys, we're back with the second part of the section, and we're going to talk a little bit about the people who pirate and why they do it, okay? So, within the piracy subculture, there's kind of three tiers of people. At the top are the creators. These are the people who actually are able to crack the digital rights management, are actually able to get the create a digital copy of whatever we're talking about, whether it's a movie or a television show or whatever. These are the people who take the legitimate version and crack it or do something with it to create the pirated version. These are kind of the top tier in the piracy subculture. They're the ones that everybody else looks up to. They're very, very, very popular and prestigious. In the middle are the traders. These are the guys that upload and download different music files and movie files and stuff, and they give as good as they get, right? So if they download 10 movies, they're going to upload 10 plus movies, right? And at the bottom are the leechers. These are the people who only take and never actually give back. These people are looked down upon by the rest of the subculture. These are the people who are like, you're just a leecher. You don't actually contribute. You just take, right? So there is definitely a hierarchy here. This has to do with matters of respect and expertise, and you know, there's that old hacker ethic about information wants to be free. The piracy subculture fully supports that, but only if you participate in it as much as everybody else. Okay? Now, the vast majority of people who pirate would not commit crime, like they would not go into a store and steal a CD, but they pirate. And how do they justify that with themselves? How are they able to morally and ethically justify doing what they do with piracy while still maintaining that they're not a thief, they wouldn't steal a music out of like a store. One of the ways they do that is using what are called techniques of neutralization. This is a really, really cool thing. Originally came up by two guys named Sykes and Matza. I want to say it was the 70s when they originally created this theory. And they had 5 different techniques of neutralization. 5 different ways people kind of took a moral vacation and said, look, I know this is wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway because, right? The 2 of their original 5, that is, the 2 of their original 5 that are the most popular among pirates are first the denial of injury, which means essentially this justification is, yes, I did the bad thing, but no harm came of it. Nobody got injured. There's no victim, right? So essentially these pirates say, yes, I pirated, but the only people losing out here are super, super rich corporate executives, right? It's that kind of, where people shoplift from Walmart and they say, oh, well, Walmart's a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They're not going to notice if I steal a $1 can of soda. It's a justification for something that is still wrong. Okay. Similarly, they might say, yeah, I pirated it, but I wouldn't have bought a legitimate copy anyway. So the company's not losing out on any money, right? So if I hadn't pirated this movie, I would not have paid any money for it legitimately. Thus, the company is not losing out on any money. Another big one is condemning the condemners. This is where essentially you say, yes, I did the thing, but it was their fault. It's your fault. You people saying this is wrong, it's your fault. So essentially, yes, I pirated that video game, but if I had bought it legitimately, that DRM would have annoyed the heck out of me. So I'm going to pirate it instead. Or I'm going to, it's the Recording Industry Association of America's fault. They're evil people. I really don't like them. They're doing all these immoral things. Thus, I'm going to pirate the music from the people they represent. Okay. Another technique of neutralization that wasn't one of the original 5 from Sykes and Matza, but a piracy researcher kind of created this one as a 6th one specifically for the crime of digital piracy, is the neutralization technique of sampling, i.e., yeah, I'm going to download a few songs by this artist and I'm going to pirate them. But if I like the songs, I'm going to legitimately buy more of their music. If I don't like the songs, I'm not out any money. But if I do like the songs, I'm going to legitimately buy their CDs. I'm going to legitimately go to their concerts. I'm going to spend money on them later. I just need to get this free sample. I'm going to pirate a piece of their art in order to later go on and legitimately purchase their art. And there is actually some evidence for this, because people who download music illegally also buy more music legally, right? So there is some actual evidence that this is not just a justification. It is a justification, but it's not just a justification. Does that make sense? So similar to what I just talked about, this is a common meme on the internet about piracy, right? So if you pirate a movie, you start the movie and you get to watch the movie. If you pay for a commercial DVD of the movie, you have to go through all this annoyance before you get to the actual movie. Okay? So this is one reason why some companies in some formats are skipping the annoying parts to be able to just directly give it to the consumer, right? So like streaming music. They're making it easier in order to kind of remove this as a justification for pirates. Very similar. Here's somebody wanting to get an MP3, and they're trying to buy it legitimately from here, and oh, we can't do it because you're not legally allowed to legally buy this music outside of the United States. Oh, so we go to here, eMusic. Oh, no, can't get it there either. Okay, well, what's the only way I'm going to get the music then? Pirate it. So once again, this is an area where both movie, music, all those people, when they're making it available, the more available they make it to people to acquire legally, I think the less they're going to download it, the less they're going to pirate it, if that makes sense. So what laws do we have to protect from piracy? The original kind of copyright laws that, goes back to the days of books and sheet music was the Berne Convention in 1886. And basically a bunch of different countries came together in Bern, Switzerland, and they all said, look, let's all agree to recognize and respect each other's copyrights. And so a whole bunch of countries have signed on to this. And so essentially, if you have a copyright in one of those countries, that copyright will be respected in all of those countries. And, in the 21st century, basically every first world country and most third world countries on the planet are signatories to that Berne Convention. So what's legal in one is, or what's illegal to copy in one is illegal to copy in all. There's also a group called the World Intellectual Property Organization that works through the UN to kind of police this intellectual property stuff, and they track illegal copyright violations, and they work with the UN to try to figure out how they can help the problem, if that makes sense. Here in the United States, the Copyright Act of 1976 made violating the copyright of somebody a felony, right? So if you are caught with a certain, I can't remember the exact year or the exact amount, but if you're caught with violating a certain amount of copyrights, I think it's making more than 10 copies or something, that is a felony, meaning you're going to spend more than 1 year in prison if convicted. in 1997, specific to digital piracy, they created the No Electronic Theft Act, which means if you are caught being a pirate, you face up to 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. And then the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998 says, look, the internet service providers, the companies that run the internet, you can be protected from being liable in these cases, but only if you help track and catch your customers that are violating these laws. Does that make sense? Okay. So, civil suits. In the early 2000s, there were a bunch of civil suits by these different associations that control different copyrights in multiple countries. So in the United States, you have the RIAA, which is they do music copyrights, and then we have the Motion Picture Association of America, which is the MPAA, and they do movie rights. And these two groups got together and started suing people. In the UK, there's the Federation Against Copyright Theft, which is essentially what those first two do in America. The FACT does in the UK. In Australia, they have the Australian Federation Against Copyright Theft. And in India, they have the Indian music industry. And these are all just giant groups, and it is their job to protect the intellectual property of the people who are creating that intellectual property in their country. And they are civil organizations. They are not government-run. And they're essentially lobbying groups or advocacy groups. That's the word I'm looking for. So in the early 2000s, especially in the United States, and especially the RIAA, they start filing all these lawsuits. They start suing people. And usually they had no idea who the people were. They would just sue kind of this anonymous IP address that they knew had been downloading a whole bunch of music. And they filed thousands of these lawsuits in the early 2000s. And this was largely seen as a horrible press thing. Because some of those people that they ended up suing were like 12-year-old girls, right? And the big bad RIAA was seen as being a bully when they sued all these people, and it upset a lot of people, all these lawsuits. So these days, they're not really doing the lawsuit route anymore because it didn't really have an effect on downloading anyways. One of the things they're doing now is poisoning files. So they'll take a file that looks like a pirated copy of a song or a movie or whatever, but it'll have some flaw in it, sometimes up to and including having like a virus, and put those onto websites like the Pirate Bay or onto these BitTorrent services. And everybody that downloads it is expecting to get this pirated thing, but they ended up getting this, either a virus or just a copy of the song that doesn't work, or whatever. So it's a bad file. So to kind of try to prevent people from downloading that stuff, right? Because if people try to download and they keep getting bad files, eventually they're going to say, screw it, I'm just going to buy a legitimate copy. Or at least that's the theory. And it's actually, the Indian music industry paid some other companies to perform a distributed denial of service attack, which is illegal, at least in the United States, against groups that were seeding these torrents. So like the Pirate Bay website, the Indian music industry was paying a company or companies to attack them using illegal means. So there's lots of different things that these groups are doing to try to lower piracy. How much of an effect is it really having? That's debatable, and it depends on where you look at the statistics. But piracy is a very big thing, and it is probably not going anywhere anytime soon. But anyway, that is the end of the section. Thank you guys for being here. I'll see you next time.